Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome into a Friday edition of KC Sports Tonight. I am Mark Poulose, joined by Gabe Swartz as we get you ready for Super Bowl weekend here in the U.S. of A. Gabe, that leads us right into our first question, and I know it just seems like no one cares about the Super Bowl, and I've kind of been struggling with this idea in my head. Is it just because, here in Kansas City, the Chiefs have been going to the Super Bowl for so many years in a row, and obviously so many people that we talk to about football, that are football fans, have been so invested in that journey, and now this year the Chiefs missed the playoffs, not playing in the Super Bowl. It's the Seahawks against the Patriots. My question for you, does anybody care about the Super Bowl, or is it just a nothing burger this year?
People definitely care, but the
outside of New England and Seattle,
football, if you really enjoy high level football, I think you still should really enjoy this. All signs, I know that Sam Darnold is not like the greatest quarterback in the league, and probably borderline, I mean, you could argue somewhere between like the 11th and 15th best quarterback in the league. That doesn't fire people up to discuss. And I think when you pose the question, do we have Chiefs blinders on? I think what we have is the vast majority of the general public is coming off of multiple Super Bowls in a row of not just the Chiefs but Patrick Mahomes, and as such, Patrick Mahomes in particular, the three-peat pursuit, the chance for him to get to 4 Super Bowls, and do something that Tom Brady hadn't done with the three-peat in particular. There was so many legacy debates happening around last year's Super Bowl. It almost felt like the multiplication factor of legacy when you have the same cast of characters in the Super Bowl year after year after year. And so, yes, Seattle's a great team, but to the point that you had as we were setting up for this show, the stars of this team are not household names. Like Jackson Smith-Njigba is an awesome football player, an awesome wide receiver. He wins Offensive Player of the Year last night at NFL Honors. And if you were not a hardcore college football watcher or somebody, if you were just like a general draft person, you're like, oh, I heard of this guy because he was a first-round pick and he went to Ohio State, but had kind of a slower start to his career. So the lack of maybe star power, the lack of just like the very basic, people love having the GOAT debate in any sport. And as a result, the last couple Super Bowls, we've been able to have this GOAT debate of Mahomes and Brady, and it just is a natural conversation point. This year, Monday morning is going to come around. Monday afternoon is going to come around. We'll do this show at 5:30. And regardless of who wins, I mean, you can argue if Drake May wins, like the biggest argument with the Patriots would be, oh, Drake May has passed Joe Burrow as like the 5th best quarterback in the NFL right now, and he's staked his claim. And that's not something that like fires people up to have. And if the Seahawks win it, people are just going to say like, great for Sam Darnold, redemption story, really figured his career out. So I don't know if it's like no one cares as much as it is just that the stakes of the game, there's always stakes because it's the Super Bowl, but the legacy defining stakes aren't there. That's where I feel like we're lacking.
No, I think you made a lot of good points there, and I feel like, a lot of fans out there, they really did get sick and tired of the Chiefs. I can't tell you so many times, like last year when we were down there in New Orleans, like there were just people that didn't want to see the Chiefs win because the Chiefs have been winning so much. And then, so obviously, maybe some NFL fans, they wanted a breath of fresh air. And this is what happens sometimes when you get a breath of fresh air. You get two teams that maybe not really two people care about. Now, just now you were kind of focusing in on how I've kind of described it as there are no heroes and villains in this game. Like there's no one that you want to cheer for. There's really no one that you want to cheer against. It's just kind of the most blah game out there. But when we take a step back, that was just talking about the players. Now if we just talk about the teams, the organizations as a whole, I got to think about the Seattle Seahawks. They might be the 3rd most talked about team in their division.
Yeah.
Like everyone talks
Easily.
about the LA Rams, everyone talks about the San Francisco 49ers. No one talks about the Seattle Seahawks. And here they are in the Super Bowl, favored to win. Like in the NFC West, they were 3rd on the pecking order in terms of of fan interest. Then you look at the AFC East with the New England Patriots. Obviously, the Patriots had the number 2 seed. They had a great season, but no one talked about the Patriots, I feel like, in the AFC East. This year was all about the Bills. It was about Josh Allen. It was about will the Bills be able to get over the hump? Now Mahomes isn't in the playoffs. Will Allen be able to make it to the Super Bowl? No one ever considered either of these two teams as being maybe the front runners or the difference makers in their division, and they've obviously proven that to be. But Gabe, just from an organizational standpoint, like the Seahawks as a team, I know you're a very invested football fan, journalist, all that, whole 9 yards. How many times outside of the playoffs did you watch the Seahawks play this year?
I'm trying to think. So, I mean, the standalone Week 18 game that was for the 1 seed, them and the 49ers.
Oh, that was a huge game, absolutely.
But like at that point, it was January at this point.
Yeah.
They had a huge Thursday night game against the Rams.
Yeah, they did.
And that, again,
that might have been the 2 times that we watched them this year.
That's the 2 times that people had like ultimate focus on them. The other thing is, like 5 or 6 weeks ago, this was a team that was trailing by a point in the last 2 minutes to a Phillip Rivers-led Colts team. So the idea of them becoming the Super Bowl champions, even though they were the 1 seed and all of these advanced football metrics suggest that they're one of the best teams in recent NFL history from offensive and defensive dominance standpoint, I do think it's going to catch people off guard where they may win the Super Bowl this year, and next year they'll have more attention and such on them, and the likelihood is that they will not be quite as good. And as a result, then people will maybe point the microscope a little closer at them, and people will be like, "Oh, that team wasn't even that good." It's a really good team, but I think that they'll probably be focused on more next year, and the odds of them repeating the performance is not quite the same. But to your point of like no villains and heroes, I do think that Robert Kraft, people don't necessarily love the Patriots ownership, but other than that, it's like.
But he's not going to make a play on the field.
Stephon Diggs, I guess you could argue the off-the-field stuff that happened with him this season. Christian Barmore, the 2 Patriots guys that both have pending litigation. That's not fun to discuss. But if we're looking at – there's no villains in the sense of, like, that guy's won so much that I want to see him lose. Yeah. And there was all of that on the Chiefs the last couple of years. I would even argue there was that from the Eagles' standpoint of people just being like, I don't enjoy when people from Philadelphia get to walk around as winners because they are arrogant, not fun to be around people. So last year's Super Bowl, the consensus I got from talking to college friends who lived not in Kansas City and not in Philadelphia was I really don't want to see either of these teams win. Yeah. And I think that fuels people watching, whereas Sunday night it's going to be we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's like the old saying of like hopefully it's a good game. Hopefully it is a good game, because if either of these teams wins in a blowout, it would be really disappointing. But the Seahawks, the couple times that they have been in big games, it's been fun. The Rams games this year have been awesome. The NFC Championship game, if you were a real football lover, I would argue was the Super Bowl. Like the Rams Seahawks was such a high level football game. I hope it's somewhat near that. But the big scandal of this week and the big football argument or the big storyline out of Santa Clara and the San Francisco Bay Area this week is just Patriots fans are mad that Tom Brady doesn't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah,
and that's crazy.
Everyone's looking for a storyline, and that's the biggest story they can grab onto, because both of these teams, like I don't mean this in a negative way. I just mean this as the truth. There is no pizzazz around either of these organizations. Yeah. Like there's nothing that's like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to watch the Patriots play. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to go watch the Seahawks play. It's just not how it is. But to me, and I could end up being wrong on this, I think this will end up being maybe the worst Super Bowl champion in terms of overall team talent that we've seen maybe in quite some time. And the reason I bring that up, because I think maybe 5, 10, 15 years from now, when some of these players that are playing now maybe have stepped away, maybe they're at the tail end of their careers, and I'm thinking about the quarterbacks that we are all talking about, like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, some of these guys that are, I think a lot of those guys might look back and say, this season was a huge missed opportunity to add a ring to their resume, because look at the path that in the AFC that you had to take to the Super Bowl. It was in no way, shape, or form was it a gauntlet. Like, think about what the Chiefs did a couple years ago when they went to Baltimore and won, when they went to Buffalo and won, and then went on to win the Super Bowl. The journey to the Super Bowl this year for the Patriots, I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was not that. It was not what the Chiefs went through. So I think, 10 years from now, like, Josh Allen, he could be looking back like, wow, like, we really lost to the Broncos, and that was maybe my best chance to ever win a Super Bowl, because that was the weakest playoff field.
I think you could even put that toward the Chiefs. The Chiefs.
Oh, absolutely. I think Patrick Mahomes thinks about that.
I'm sure Patrick's sitting around this week being like,
I could beat all these people.
We wasted this season, and the AFC was as weak as it's been. I think that objectively, the playoff field was weaker than any season in which the Chiefs have made it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Because people will do the revisionist history stuff and say that, the first time that Mahomes and them went to the Super Bowl, they beat the Texans and they beat the Titans, and then they beat Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl. It was still Kyle Shanahan coaching the 49ers. They're a really good team. They had a great roster. It's still Deshaun Watson when he was in his prime with the Texans, and they were a top 5 offense in the NFL, and it was prime Derrick Henry and Mike Vrabel, who's a great coach, and is, I think that is honestly, like, if you're talking about like the stars, maybe not stars from the standpoint of name brand awareness, but if you're talking about people who are at the highest level of their professions, the two people who operate at that level, aside from Smith and Jigba as the offensive player of the year, I would say in this game are the two coaches. Like, Mike Vrabel won Coach of the Year, and Mike McDonald was, I think, either the runner-up or the third-place recipient in that category. And those two guys have done unbelievable jobs. Mike McDonald is a defensive mentality guy. The Seahawks defense is the strength of their team. Mike Vrabel is just an organizational CEO type head coach, and the Patriots are a team that doesn't beat themselves. So that's kind of like the headliner.
That leads us right into our second topic here as we kind of delve into the matchup. So Oddsmaker's really not expecting a high-scoring game. Right now, the over-under in this game between the Seahawks and Patriots is set at 45.5 points. Now, Seattle opened as 3.5-point favorites, but that line has since moved up 1 point. Seattle is now a 4.5-point favorite in this game. Now, Seattle has looked maybe as just a more complete, better team throughout the playoffs. But Gabe, to me, I'm kind of surprised by the fact that they expect this to be so low scoring. Now, I know the Patriots really struggled to put up a lot of points in Denver, but I think there were some factors there. It was very cold. There was a snowstorm. This environment that they play in is not going to be like that. Are you surprised that the point total is so low and that they do expect it to be such a low scoring game?
Not really, because I think that the weather factors for the Patriots offense in Denver are being widely overstated. We watched the first half of that game where there was no flurries.
Yeah, the first 3 quarters
or
of the
there
game.
were you could argue there were flurries and it was cold and such. And I said this in the moment. I was talking to friends. Drake May wearing no sleeves in the cold in a snowstorm was really stupid, and I thought that I was expecting him to do something dumb because he looked cold, and then they had the NFL Films mic'd up comes out, and he's on the sideline talking to Josh McDaniels like, man, it's so hard, it's so cold out there, and I'm like, you're the guy who's out there in no sleeves, so you did this to yourself. But I think that the blizzard of the second half, it, like, Men in Black zapped people's minds of what the first half was, which was just bad offense in fine conditions for January football. And all these people are like, oh, we shouldn't play conference championship games in places where the weather can impact them. And it's like, that game was going to be low scoring regardless. Those offenses were not moving the ball even when the conditions were fine. So that happens. Yes, the Texans defense was the best defense in the NFL this year, and it did rain / sleet in New England for the divisional round. That's okay. But the Patriots didn't move the ball very well against the Chargers either. That was a solid defense. but it's one of the least impressive. The juxtaposition of the regular season Drake May being an MVP candidate and a rightful MVP candidate, and then the playoffs where I think every single game he's played quarterback that he has had a negative EPA per play. So he's been, every time that a play has resulted in Drake May doing something, it has been
not good,
not great for the Patriots offense, and the defense has been incredible. It's honestly like eerily similar to early Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I understand that Drake May is more talented physically. And
I was like, where? All right, we got to stop this in somewhere.
Physically, but
is he?
But
is he more physically talented than Tom Brady? I don't even want to go there.
Athleticism wise, yes.
Well,
Brady had people underestimate the fact that Brady had like a huge arm.
I guess if you wanted them to maybe go through like an Olympic style like agility competition, like maybe Drake May would come out on top, but like that's not how they're judged.
But my point is, like, there's a reason that Drake May got picked third and Tom Brady got picked in one of the latest rounds of the draft, and it's because of like the physical tools. That young Drake May can go and run for 65 yards in the AFC Championship game and do things for them. But
hey, Tom Brady has some wheels sometimes. You know, third down, fourth down, he could get a little first down. I don't know if he's running for 65 yards.
Yeah,
but
I don't know what the weather is going to be like on Sunday in Santa Clara, but this idea, the all of the weather talk about AFC NFC Conference Championship games and domes, which we've had plenty of conversations about dome football because the Chiefs are going to move to a dome and such. It almost we should just play games in domes and we should play games where it's warm. I kind of hope it just like rains in Santa Clara on
Listen
Sunday
to you.
and we get a sloppy Super Bowl.
Hey, football is an outdoor game. If they wanted to play it indoors, like it'd be like basketball. Like that's just not what it is. It is an outdoor sport for almost the entirety of it. Now, obviously, I do know that there are some situations where you would want to have an indoor game, like if there is a giant snowstorm. To me, is that a battle of football, or is that a battle of who can beat the elements? Like that's a debate we can have for a different day. But in the Super Bowl, an outdoor game, like, hey, if it rains, it rains. You're going to have to learn how to play. But I guess what I'm kind of shocked by, obviously, I know that these are both two teams with defensive-minded head coaches, and that's kind of the identity of their teams. But Seattle, I mean, their last two games, they scored 41 and 31 points. Like like it looks like they've kind of found a groove here in the postseason. I mean, Clint Kubiak was one of the hottest names out there this coaching cycle. It looks like he's going to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. But boy, Gabe, to me, I just can't get over the fact that I don't think anyone cares about this game. Brad Stevens, Neil Jones, we were talking about this earlier, and I don't think no one knows about any Super Bowl parties because no one's hosting one. No one wants to go. It's just.
But that's where I do think we have Kansas City blinders on.
Yeah.
Because I at least can remember the last time that the Chiefs did not make. It's like everybody's like, oh, the last time that the Chiefs didn't make the Super Bowl. Well, it was 3 years ago. Like I was still in college when the Chiefs last did not make the Super Bowl. And that was the Rams, so it was the LA market, and it was Matthew Stafford trying to finally get a ring, and it was Joe Burrow, who at least was a huge name because he had won the Heisman 2 years prior at LSU and such. And I think in Kansas City, most people were still getting over the fact that the Chiefs had blown a 21-3 lead in the AFC Championship game and were bummed out. So I think that it's easy to have Kansas City blinders on when the last 2 times that they've not made or the last 3 times that they've not made the Super Bowl, you could say, well, it's this year where everything just went disastrous. The other time is blowing 21-3 lead, and the other time is Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game. So people have just not necessarily been thrilled about the idea of watching another team play.
Well, and the Chiefs, I mean, after Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL, they were backed up against. I mean, they were up against the wall before then. It's just the football season has been over in Kansas City for such a long time, and I think that's partly why we don't really care about the Super Bowl. And also, I think it's just. I mean, maybe Kansas City, there's been a lot of football that we've watched and enjoyed over the last 10 years or so, or even really since Andy Reid came to town. I think it's a little bit where it's getting a little time off. But, hey, we'll see. Patriots against Seahawks. Gabe, let's get a quick pick out of you. Who is going to win this game? Seattle's 3.5 or 4.5 point favorite.
Yeah, and I think that they win. I was talking to our morning executive producer, Stanley, and he said, give me a score prediction. And I said 27-17 Seahawks.
Ooh. I think I might go I don't know why I feel like the Patriots are going to win. because I feel like all the evidence points to the contrary. But I'll go a little. Boy, they don't think it's going to be very high scoring. I might go 21-17 Patriots.
Both of us would be under
On the
total
under.
on
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's good. I don't know. I mean, they do have 2 weeks to prepare. We'll see. Hey, that's
Yeah,
why
but
they play the
sometimes
games.
that just results in the defense dominating
Yeah,
and
it
the
does.
offense having no answer.
Hey, but sometimes Andy Reid can dial him up. You know his record after with 2 weeks to prepare. But hey, neither of those coaches are Andy Reid, and neither of them have 3 rings. We'll see. But one of them's going to leave with 1 ring on Sunday, so we'll see how as a coach. Mike Vrabel obviously has some rings as a player. All right, we're going to move topics here because KU men's basketball hits the hardwood tomorrow against the Utah Utes at Allen Fieldhouse. Now, Gabe, the Kansas Jayhawks have won 6 games in a row, and both Bill Self and I believe Melvin Council have pointed to a players-only meeting after KU lost to West Virginia to start the year 1-2 in Big 12 play. Now, sometimes we hear about these players-only meetings. Like I know the Royals had a players-only meeting last year when they had their horrible month of June, and it didn't really help. This one for KU, it certainly has appeared to turn them around. Do you put a lot of stock into that players-only meeting, or do you kind of think that this team had to kind of figure out its identity and then obviously figure out if its star player was going to kind of how he was going to fit into the mix? What do you think is the bigger factor here, players meeting or maybe team gelling? Are they the same?
Can I say both?
Yeah, you absolutely
because
can.
I think part of the players-only meeting, at least
Absolutely
in part,
could have been.
We obviously don't know the contents of the meeting, but part of it had to have been certain guys. Like I would have to think, based on the way that this team plays and based on the way that certain individuals act, I would think that Melvin Council had a pretty big voice in that meeting, and I would think that Trey White, based on his age, had a pretty big voice in that meeting, and that those 2 guys played well prior to the players-only meeting. But Trey White, in particular, when they lost to West Virginia, he was quoted. I think this was I read this in the Kansas City Star. So shout out to Shreyas for covering KU and being out there in Morgantown. But Trey White said, like, I'm not glad that this happened, but I feel like we needed the wake-up call. And I'm like, I don't necessarily believe that they needed to lose to West Virginia for the wake-up call, but I do think that Melvin Council Jr.'s attitude for this team has started to shift into the attitude of the entire team. And we saw it in Vegas briefly, and then they lost it early in the conference play. So I think that it has helped. I don't know if there was like a pleading moment in that meeting from people of like, Darren, we need you. Anything you can give us, please. Because when he's been on the court, the ceiling for this team just raises. And the last thing I would say is, did someone at some point say, like, Flory, you're better than this? Because he's been, in the last 6 games, he's shooting 78% from the floor. And he's blocking like 3.5 shots per game, and his rebounds are up. So everything that he was lacking in earlier in the season, particularly the rebounding, has upped. And the block shots, like, he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, not just in the Big 12, but nationally. So all of that has come together. You could just say, like, it's convenient timing. But given the teams that they've beaten and the teams that they have upcoming, I think most teams don't have their turning point be in mid-January. But I could argue you could have multiple, like early in conference play. But I would argue you could have multiple turning points. Like the turning point could be the meeting, and then I think the get over the hump, like we really believe in ourselves, could be Monday night when they finally won a road game against a good team.
I love how you said how they're really starting to believe in themselves, because I think over the 6-game stretch, like, you can make a very good argument that KU is playing some of the best basketball in all of America. Like, think about the first half that they played against Iowa State at Allen Fieldhouse, or even the entire game. I mean, they just absolutely blew them out of the water. The first half against BYU. I mean, though the KU teams that we saw on the floor, if they could produce at that level, I've not seen every team play a whole game of college basketball this year, but the way that KU played in those two games, especially in that first half against BYU. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine any team in the country being able to stop them if KU can play at that level. Now, I know against BYU in that first half, KU was like 9 of 12 from three-point range, but they were absolutely on fire. But then also think about what they just did on Monday, going down there to Texas Tech, obviously kind of an odd game, but the confidence that Darren Peterson and this team, I think, is going to get out of that game and closing it the way they did, I think that could be a huge momentum shifter for the rest of the season, because I think so much of this with KU has been maybe the burden of expectation, where everyone expects you to be good. Everyone expects you to be so good. Darren Peterson's the potential #1 overall pick, and now they are starting to do the things that you get labeled those things for. And so I hope KU can obviously kind of continue this good play. Tomorrow, 19.5-point favorites against Utah. And then on Monday, Gabe, a big one against Arizona. The Wildcats coming to Allen Fieldhouse for a game on Big Monday. So certainly a big week ahead for the Jayhawks. Any thoughts on that Arizona game, or should we move on?
I don't think we need to worry about Utah tomorrow.
Yep.
If we're being honest, the team they can focus on it, but I think most fans are ready for Monday night.
20-point favorite in a conference game. That's not something that you see very often.
Meanwhile, Arizona's a 21-point favorite tomorrow at home against Oklahoma State, who is a tournament team. That shows you how good Arizona is. But Monday night is going to put to the test how big of a factor is Allen Fieldhouse, because KU, when they're at home, over this year in particular, just in home games. I said this earlier this week to Katie. They are a top 5 team in the country by all of the metrics if you just go into home games. So is that going to be enough to slay the undefeated Giant?
Hey, we'll see. Well, I think there have been 3 really big instances of Allen Fieldhouse magic this year. #1, that game against TCU, then against Iowa State. I mean, Iowa State was undefeated, #2 in the country. Yeah. They had all the momentum coming in. KU punched them in the mouth and never let control of that game leave there. And then against BYU, I mean, that first half, BYU was ready to play, I think, for that
points.
game. And I mean, Allen Fieldhouse, that was a difference maker in that game. You can't tell me that one of the most hallowed grounds in all of basketball, the literal original rules of basketball, are 75 feet away from center court, and then there's 10, 12,000 screaming people in there. It's a magical place, so we'll see how that shakes out this weekend and on Monday. But, Gabe, we have one more topic, about 3 minutes left today. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark joined a broadcast today and teased a big-time announcement for the Big 12. He said it's coming out next Tuesday. This is a quote from Brett Yormark. He goes, "Listen, I'm a first mover, and our conference is a first mover. That's how we position ourselves. We're going to be doing some things that have never been done in the collegiate space." He also then said there could be a musical guest involved. But, Gabe, I am very curious as to what this is, because so many times when we hear about Brett Yormark, it's about kind of engaging fans and having a very like when we go to the Big 12 tournament. I know at Big 12 Media Days this year, Brett Yormark said they have that big deal outside where they have, and the Fan Fest and all the games, because they want you to go into that arena and be rowdy, be raucous, and because he thinks the fans are also part of the TV product. So to me, I think he's light years ahead of some of these other conference commissioners. But what do you I want you to put on your cap here, your thinking cap. What could this be? Because I thought, is it a halftime show? Is it a concert in between games?
I was going to say, I feel like it's a concert series.
Yeah.
And I think in years past they've brought in Shaq, DJ Diesel to do Saturday night post the championship game.
I covered that once.
And I don't know if that's the move, but I almost feel like the and I don't know if it's because it's a different crowd of like, do people after the game on Friday night want a concert series? Maybe, but that's what I would lean toward. Otherwise, I'm thinking it's another dangerous court design.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope it's not the court design. I know. So the thing is that court design, because me and Neil were talking about that last year. When you were there in person, it really wasn't bad. Like when you walked on the floor, when you were in the arena, like it wasn't really bothersome.
Yeah, if you were in the upper deck, it was tough on the eyes.
As soon as you watched that on TV, it was unwatchable. But hey, we'll see what this is. I know the Big 12 is trying to get more eyeballs on this conference, kind of raise the conference prestige. If it is a concert series, I will say when DJ Diesel came through, a lot of people did pack into that Power and Light area, watch him do his kind of thing. That was a cool deal. And then also in this thing, Yormark said he wants to celebritize the conference. I maybe kind of wonder, I know the the Big 12 had
Paid
I
appearances.
think they had a thing with Barstool last year, something. So hey, I don't know if that's the case this year. I don't know what's going on.
They have a WWE partnership.
Yeah, well, yeah. So look, Brett Yormark, he's all about a show, the consummate showman, and that is what they're trying to do. Hey, they brought the women's Big 12 to T-Mobile and made that quite into a big spectacle. I think they're doing good things at the Big 12 conference to position themselves in the ever-changing landscape of college athletics. But hey, guys, that is a look at KC Sports Tonight on this Friday, February the 6th. We will see you guys on our over-the-air show Saturday and Sunday at 10:35 p.m. Take care, guys.